think, for me, my fondest hope would be that people start to see who they are. You know, for years, when I started here was 1972. Still a lot of factories, a lot of foundries. Downtown was full of the yellow smoke from Lakey Foundry. And we always heard from other communities that we had an inferiority complex, that we didn't believe in ourselves, that we were a rust bucket, that we were just a foundry town. My argument always was that those foundries gave a lot of college educations, but I would hope, if there is still some of that sentiment, that people would start to see just how special this place is.
You know, I agree with that, and I think one of my fondest hopes is really kind of the same thing, but I want people to stop apologizing
Amen.
for being in Muskegon. Even more importantly, I want them to stop apologizing for being Muskegon.
Right.
Because that's who we are. We're not fancy. Lord knows we ain't fancy.
And why would we want to be?
But we know who we are, and sometimes being behind the curve, sometimes we're even ahead of the curve. And I would like for people to stop apologizing for that.
That's right.
We're you know, there's something about us. We're special.
The way that I've written about it before and what I've been asked to talk about it is I talk about how we have some grit to us.
Yeah.
You know, not only grit, but is that what grit?
Stop it, you're scaring me.
Well, that would be the first time. But there's a grittiness that makes us real.
Yeah.
We can't have a veneer on us because we're a little gritty. And I love that about Muskegon. I love that about Muskegon.
And I like that you said makes us real, because that's the other thing. I remember when I first came here, a lot of people think I'm from Muskegon because apparently I play the part so well. The other thing is because I've been here so darn long. But you know, as you know, I was born and raised in Grand Rapids and had never even visited Muskegon until I came here for a job interview. And I didn't come here thinking, oh yes, this is where I'm going to be for the rest of my life. I came here thinking, well, in the first place, I came here thinking that they were going to find me out and fire me before too long. But if I fooled people long enough to stick around, I came here thinking I'd be here for 2 or 3 years. And then I got to know people like you, of course, and got to know this community, and something, like they used to say in church, something got a hold of me.
That's right.
Something happened.
Right.
And sometimes you fall in love with a community, you develop relationships with a community as well as with the people in it, and you're not even sure how it happened or why it happened, but it becomes home. And I want people to not apologize for this being home.
That's right.
I guess, you know, in answer to the question of what I'd like to see for Muskegon, besides seeing people stop apologizing, I'd like to see a quality of life that is so undeniable that people stop encouraging their kids to go elsewhere.
Thank you. Yes.
To think, oh,
Yes.
the only way that you're going to be a success is to not be here. And there are people who have been successes living their whole life here. And I don't want to say that, you know, that's the only way you can be a success, but then it comes down to how you define being a success.
That's right.
And maybe that's one of the things we need to work on is, you know, reconsidering our
Seeing
definition.
ourselves again. Yeah.
Yeah, of what a success is.
Something else I would really like, and I'm going to start preaching a little bit here. You know,
Amen, sister.
like you, I spend a lot of time in Muskegon Heights, volunteering with students and kids for Pathfinders, which is an organization, a ministry I chair. I would really like for the people, the parts of the different communities within Muskegon to start intentionally talk with one another. intentionally volunteer with one another. One of the things that we try to model, it's a little fancier than we are, a little fancier language, but to show that people from different parts of the community can work together, that we're not enemies, that if you go to two different kinds of churches, you can still be together and work together.
Mm-hmm.
And people are not enemies because of a geographic boundary, an ethnic boundary, denominational boundary. And I think that's going to be as important to the future of this community, because we are so isolated and so separated. We might just as well live 100 miles away as 5 miles away.
Absolutely.
And that's, in my mind, has been getting worse, not been getting better, except for some of the leaders who are trying to make it happen. But, you know, we used to all work together. People would work together from different parts of the community. We would go to the farmer's market together. We would shop together. And I think that there is a bigger isolation now than there was before.
And you mentioned, those are great words you use, isolation, separation. I'm just going to say segregation. I mean, you know, there's, you know, it's amazing. We are still a segregated community. And, you know, if we talk about things that I'd like to see in Muskegon, I'd like to see us stop being afraid of each other.
That's right. Get to know each other.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of hard not to be afraid of each other if we don't know each other.
That's right.
And sometimes, you know, ignorance is and I'm not saying ignorance of facts, I'm talking about ignorance of each other. That's the greatest tool, I think, for being afraid of somebody, because you don't know enough not to be afraid of them. And the interesting thing is, a lot of times they're going through the same things as you.
Right. That's right.
They're going through birth and death and
fears for their kids'
yes,
futures.
Yes, absolutely. We're all sharing these things, and somehow we don't realize it. We think, oh, that person is the other. That person is something else from what I am. And, you know, that's a scary thing, because if somebody's the other, there's almost no limit to what you can do for them or how you can think about them. It makes almost anything allowable.